As I was descending, it got dark actually, and I hear the name or the number of 1540. Maybe that's the year. It feels very cold, damp, it's dark. It's raining outside. It's nighttime. It's very foggy. And I'm sick. I'm actually laying in bed with very bad. They don't know what it is. It's a cold, but it's very serious. I feel weak, and it feels like there's a lot of darkness around me, and I feel a lot of despair.
How old do you feel?
15. And I'm hovering between death and life.
Can you see your hair on your head? What color is it?
It's black.
How long is it?
It's long and unbraided. It's fanned out across the bed, and I'm unconscious. I'm barely aware of what's going on.
What is your name?
Amelia.
Describe the room around you.
It's cold, it's damp, and it's small. There's a small fireplace in a corner. And the floor is dirt. I keep hearing the words 1540, so I feel like that's the year, perhaps.
Yeah.
There's no one in the room with me, but I can hear and feel the people in the next room talking about my condition. And they don't know what's wrong with me.
Is there any heat from the fire?
Not for me. I'm feeling very cold and chilled and damp. Everything feels damp and very oppressive.
Do you know what is wrong with your body?
I have some kind of virus. I have a fever, and it's in my lungs. It's a cold, but I don't know that that's what they would have called it then. It maybe was pneumonia or is pneumonia. But it's produced a fever that's quite fierce, and they don't know if I'm going to survive.
Is that the home where you normally live?
Yes. It's just sudden. It was unexpected. I came ill very quickly. And it feels like I'm hovering.
Is that your bedroom?
Yes. No, it's not my bedroom. They've put me in the master's quarters, actually. So this does not feel like a room that I normally sleep in, but an upgrade.
Yeah. And who do you live with there?
I'm a servant. So I live with the family that I take care of, that I serve. I work in the kitchen usually, and I got caught in the rain. I got caught in a storm while I was out taking care of my errands for the house, and became very ill. And the people that I work with are very fond of me, though, so they're concerned for me.
Do you know the name of the place you live?
Scotland, Galway.
And what is the year?
1540. I keep hearing that.
Okay.
That same number.
Do you have family?
No, not related to me. I've been separated from them. I'm not sure why. They died. I'm an orphan.
Brothers or sisters?
Not with me.
Do you know where the closest one lives?
I don't know where any of my family is now. We were separated somehow. I miss them. I feel like I'm alone in the world.
Are you wearing any jewelry, ornaments?
No, I have on a very basic white linen nightgown. No jewelry.
Mm.
I'm very emaciated. I've been ill for a while, and I haven't really come to consciousness.
Do you know how long you've been in the bed?
About 10 days.
You said before that you felt like you were floating.
Yeah, it feels like I'm hovering. And what that means is just hovering between life and death. It's a choice. It feels like
While you're hovering, whether it's now or within the last 10 days, have you had any visitors while in that state?
the vicar, priest, a holy man came to see me. He's a friend of the family that I work for. I'm very connected with their own daughter. So their daughter and I are friends, or we have a connection. She's been to see me. Her name is Anna. Those two visitors.
Mm. Do you remember what the holy man said to you?
He didn't speak to me, but I can hear him speaking to the family.
Yeah.
They're in the other room, but I can hear them. I can sense their words. There's a lot of concern. He feels that he's done everything he can for me.
So those were the visitors that came to you on the physical side. But have you experienced anything from the other side, as in any visitors that may have came to you?
Yes, a younger brother who had already died and came to see me. He was about 3 years old. He came to sit with me and to talk to me.
Do you know what he said to you?
He wants me to play with him in the meadow. He wants me to cross over. I have scarlet fever, actually.
Okay.
And it's affected my heart. And I mourned this brother. I was living with him when he died. I don't know what happened. He drowned.
Mm.
But somehow our family's been separated, and they don't live with me anymore. I don't know what happened to them.
Mm.
I'm very poor, and I didn't have anyone. I think it feels I was rescued off the streets and made a servant. I'm grateful. No, I succumbed to the illness and I joined my brother.
How long does it take for you from that
Once
first moment we just saw until you succumb?
I think I succumb in that moment.
So just describe that process.
Sure. When my brother comes for me, I go with him, and I don't realize that I've left my body. It feels like frolicking and prancing and playing in the meadow and running after him. I'm amazed that he is so vibrant and so alive. He's such a sweet boy.
And how does that
And
feel doing that with him? Because it's now been a while since you saw him.
it feels amazing. We're playing. We're running in the field. It's sunset. The butterflies and the fireflies are in the field. And we're dancing around the trees with the fairies.
Hmm.
And I love him. We had a very close connection when he was alive, and I've missed him. His name is Aaron. And I feel free. I passed in the room when the doctor and my family were speaking
Yeah.
about me.
Did you go instantly to that field?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look back on that short life, what do you think the purpose of it was?
It's a very difficult experience because there was a lot of heartache and pain. There was a lot of separation and death. I feel like my brother died before I was separated from my family, and it feels like my family died of the plague, maybe, or some kind of deep illness that was pervasive, killed a lot of people. I survived the first time, but I won't survive this one. And I didn't.
Mm.
My lungs were scarred and my heart was damaged. And I feel definitely a connection to somehow this lifetime and the heart condition I have here. It's connected to the heart condition that Lynnette has.
Yeah.
It was heartache.
What was the heartache from?
Just the loss of my family. I just I was so young. I was 13 and I lived a couple of years on the streets. I didn't,
Mm.
I suffered abuse and being spat on, and people would throw their feces and their urine on me. It was
Mm.
awful. I missed everyone and I felt really alone. It was heartbreak. It didn't feel fair. I didn't understand why it was all so hard. I was grateful to release it.
Just give it a moment to accept that, and acknowledge that connection and allow the healing to take place. Some things that we may not even understand or know about can be healed at this moment unconsciously.
I wept with joy when crossed over and I joined my brother because I didn't think I'd ever see him again.
Yeah. Your brother Aaron, do you know if he is in your current life?
Yeah,
Who is he?
that's Nathan. Aaron and I have a very special bond, and I couldn't save him. I was with him the day that he died. I pulled him out of the water. I felt responsible. We traveled together a lot.
When he died, what were you doing at that time?
We'd gone to the pond together, and he was wading in the shallow part of the pond, and I was reading, enjoying the sunshine. Happy days. And he slipped and went under, and I didn't notice. I was engrossed in my book.
Do you know what your book was about?
My book wasn't a book. It was something that I'd created. It wasn't a book like a book, like a book. It was drawings and things that I'd compiled, like a book of my own. I was working on it. I was drawing and writing, but I couldn't write, so I was scribbling.
Do you remember anything you were drawing at that moment? An image?
I was drawing a love story. I was drawing a fantasy, a story of lovers. I was wistful that age. And I was caught up in my own fantasies of being in love. It was quiet. I don't realize that Aaron was under the water.
Yeah.
I don't even know how long he'd been under. And at first I didn't know where he was. I thought maybe he'd left the pond and wandered off. And so I called him, searching.
Yeah.
And when I realized he was still in the water, I ran back to the pond as quick as I could, and in my heavy skirts, and tried to find him. It was muddy. The water was cloudy. I had to feel around for him. Oh, God.
Did you blame yourself at all?
Yes. I never stopped blaming blaming myself.
Yeah.
I had to carry him back. His little body in my arms all the way back to the house.
So it's okay to cough, just let all that out. Sometimes chakras are opened and released, and sometimes the body is physical reactions.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely feeling it here. Oh.
So you know it's not your fault. These things happen, and we might find out more information about it later on when I ask about it. Okay, let's return to that field where you were playing with him after you died. What happens after you finish playing with him?
He wants me to follow him, and so we're running in the field together. And we're running. I'm following him into the sunset. And the sun opens up. It's a portal. It's the light. It's the tunnel. It's the great beyond.
Mm. Do you keep following him?
Yeah. Yeah, I go into the expanse of the light. I go in that direction, but in the blinding of the light, I lose him. I don't see him anymore. All I see is the light. I can sense him close, but that's all I see is light.
Mm. And how does it feel to go into the light?
I feel like immersion. Feels like a mashup of time. It's like I feel almost like a life review. I can feel and sense and see all of the events happening at once.
In the
Especially
previous life?
Of that lifetime.
Yeah.
I know what happened with my throat. When I came back with Aaron, my father was so upset with me and flew into a rage and squeezed my neck. He didn't kill me, but in a fit of rage, he wanted to.
Yeah. Perhaps that moment put a more permanent, semi-permanent block on that chakra.
Yes, I feel that. Definitely.
But now you can release it. So in the light, you get a sense of a life review. Do you feel that you're still alone?
No, there are others around me. Others in my soul group. Welcoming me back. And I sense them first as lights. Different colored lights. I sense their presence, but they don't look the same as they did to me when I was alive. They've taken on many faces. And this is my core group.
Yeah.
They welcome me back. My brother is there, but he's different. He's how I always remember him.
So when you say different, how would you describe that?
Expansive. He's wise and eternal, and he's mature. He's not a little boy of 3, but he's this wise, eternal presence that I've always known.
Yeah. Do any of them communicate with you? Do they say anything?
They welcome me back. Aaron is in the distance watching, and the other members are around me. It feels like there's 7. I keep hearing the word 7. So in total, there's 7 of us. 7 is an important number for me.
Yep. Are you given any important message in relation to that life or in relation to that moment? Any information that's important?
Yeah, that that lifetime was really difficult and hard. I chose that life to move into service. Service and servant is a theme and energy that my soul is working on. And the density of that, and the heaviness of the scorn, the disdain, my family, my father, my mother, I was an outcast. They kicked me out. They didn't die. I was cast away and had to fend for myself after Aaron died. And so I experienced a lot of rejection and a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And I felt that when I was living on the streets and sleeping on the hard, cold cobblestones of the weather. And I was blessed and taken in, but living on the streets had really compromised my health. And I never recovered from the wounding of all of that experience. It was a brief and short life, but filled with trauma and wounds, mostly about just experiencing the heaviness of it. Everything about that lifetime is very heavy, but it gave me perspective. It helped me to be humble and grateful for meager things. A kindness, a bite of bread, clean water, a place to sleep.
So now that you're back with your soul group there, the one that is closest to you, just ask them, what is the best way for you to heal and integrate that life just now?
Through acceptance, through love, through accepting the creation of the choice. That's what I'm hearing. It's all to be celebrated, integrated, and honored. After this lifetime, in a moment of rest, my soul is tired. But it was important, that lifetime. Definitely feel a throat chakra experience, needing to have that experience. Definitely feeling connected to the relevance of my current life.
Yeah. That makes sense. So after you meet with your soul group on the other side, what happens next?
I spent some time with Aaron and Nathan, the same. We travel together sometimes. So I spend quite a bit of time just with him in recognition and healing and communion, the space of love and remembering, study, rest, mostly for both of us.
Mm.
And then eventual life review again. That was a hard lifetime for me. I've picked up a lot of physical damage from that lifetime that I've carried forward.
When you go through that life review again, do you see that as being part of it or an outcome?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a surviving a loss and being an outcast. It was a theme to repeat quite a bit. A theme that I'd chosen that was connected to the throat chakra. The loss of him was profound.
Yeah.
And the longing and missing him and feeling the guilt and the shame. So there was a lot, especially with my throat and my heart. Those seem specific, especially.
I think that when you're in a relationship with someone that you've had a past life with in a situation like that, it's important to address those issues because it may affect the relationship otherwise. So that's good that you've had that experience.
Yeah.
Is there anything else important that comes up during that moment, looking at that life again?
Yes. That lifetime created a sense of running, of trying to escape truth, responsibility, the weight of actions, the weight of grief, the weight of the grief and the scarlet fever that damaged my heart. They're connected somehow. So felt like I developed a sense of running away. I had to run away in that experience, but it created a theme of running, survival,
Yeah.
aloneness, being without him. It's awful. And I feel that. I feel that in this lifetime. A sense of separation, persecution, struggling to find my voice. Yeah, it's very connected. Feeling it now, feeling the burden of not being able to fully speak my truth. And that's changing.
Yeah.
It's persecution, really, is a big, big energy here.
Do you feel that there's more to let go there energetically? Now that you've seen all that?
No, my throat's cleared. It feels like it's clearing.
That's good.
Makes sense. All the things. It's amazing.
So after that life review, what happens next?
I choose. I have a period of study and a period of rest and a period of reunion. And then it's almost with reluctance that I choose another life, another experience with my family, with my soul family. So I get prepared for incarnation again. And the next lifetime is different.
Do you feel it's an important one for us to look at, the next one?
It's a lifetime that I've explored. It is a lifetime where I emerged as defiant. Again, this solitary energy, but I was a healer in that lifetime. I was an oracle. I was a sage. I was a medicine woman. And I came into that lifetime with a lot of gifts and knowledge and wisdom and power, a lot of mystical abilities. And I was feared in my community. I remember this lifetime. I was a young medicine woman in Italy. And around the same time period, it's very dark ages, it feels.
Yeah.
But I worked with herbs and I worked with energy and I worked with medicinals, but I was feared and I was also envied. In that lifetime, I was poisoned by what's the word? A charlatan, a medicine man who was jealous of my abilities.
Yeah.
And he what's the word? He tricked me. He fooled me. He pulled a veil over my eyes and he perceived himself to be different. So he was a shapeshifter. He was a necromancer. He was very dark, worked with a lot of dark magic. I was very intrigued with that. We became lovers, but he only did that to manipulate and deceive me and ultimately take me out.
Yeah.
That was the first lifetime that I really connected to the power of my spirit. And it felt like it took a while for me in the spirit life to get ready for that lifetime to come in with that much power. I had a lot of rebellion in that lifetime, a lot of really self-assuredness, a lot of confidence in myself and my abilities, because I had a deep knowing. I was born into a genetic line that had a lot of deep wisdom about earth medicine, shaman energy, but they didn't use those terms. I had gifts beyond the physical, and I scared them. They didn't understand my ability.
Mm.
So this lifetime feels complete for me, but it was the next lifetime I went into, and it feels good. It feels connected. It feels like a missing piece.
Is there one particular thing from that lifetime that connects into your current one that you think is important for you to see, as in how it relates or how it may be affecting you?
Yeah, this lifetime I went through in a way like a shamanic process with a healer, and remembered this lifetime. And in this lifetime, my lover, this person, was a person I've known in this lifetime who had similar energy. A person I thought was my twin flame, but was very much against me. And so it took me a long time to sort of extricate myself energetically from that. But that lifetime with him and being a healer, I'm in that same energy now in this lifetime, and reclaiming a lot of not just those abilities and knowledge and wisdom, but also my voice, my power, and my rebellion. There was something about that lifetime that I wasn't really, I don't know if it was because I was a woman or my age. I was also very young. And people were nervous and scared because they they couldn't understand why I was so powerful at such a young age, and they were very mystified. They feared me, but they respected me.
Yeah.
So it feels like in this lifetime I'm surfing that territory again. I'm well known. I have a clear voice and a clear vision, and I can help a lot of people, but I definitely feel that there is a need to be cautious about who I allow in and who I allow to see that gift. So I have better boundaries.
And when you say who you allow in, do you mean in romantic relationships?
Well, in romantic relationships especially, but even with people, like it describes and explains why I have such good boundaries in this lifetime, why that's been such a lesson for me and something that I've really mastered. I've learned about boundaries and how to protect my gift.
Yeah. And while you were looking at that life, were you alone at the time? Do you feel alone?
No, Aaron was there. Aaron feels like a life companion soul for me. Someone that I do this with often. Like we work together to do life reviews. We don't always travel together, but we have enough that he's an important, prominent mate for me.
Yeah.
And so we work together quite a bit. And he was there, but no one else.
Okay.
My other soul family came in for like peripheral parts that they will play in that lifetime and in others, but he's the main person that was with me at that time.
So, for example, one of them came up in that life when you were reviewing it, and then that one would be beside you while you were looking at that scene. Is that what you mean?
When I crossed over from Amelia's life, my soul family was there. Aaron came to get me, and we played in the field together, and then my soul family was there, and then Nathan was there for the life review. He's there for most of the life reviews. He was there for the life review. Was he there? Hold on. Was he there for the life review of the medicine woman? He wasn't in that experience with me. So I feel like he's there for some, but not all. Yeah.
And were there any other beings there, or was it just your soul family through the life review?
Just my soul family.
So do you think you're the sort of soul that doesn't need perhaps any extra help when you're reviewing the lives?
Yeah, it feels, yes, there's definitely a feeling of solitary energy. Independence would be another word. Confidence, maybe to a level that I can work alone more than I used to, maybe.
Yeah.
It feels like my full soul family is smaller than it used to be. Like I've gone through enough experience that I have a smaller soul group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a more concentrated group.
Yes.
And that probably relates to the lives you get into as well. Very specific. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask some questions about that first experience that she had when she was 15. And she said that it was in Scotland, 1540. Why was that an important past life to come up today?
Because it's going to help Lynnette remember who Nathan is in her life and why he's here. It was important to remember the connection. And that lifetime is significant to what she's experiencing with him now. So it is reminding her about patience and waiting for union. That lifetime was very dark, and Amelia didn't have much light in her consciousness. And so it was very heavy with doubt. And there was a need to there was no light piercing her consciousness. And so there was a definite feeling of not understanding the afterlife and never seeing family members again. And there was great grief around never seeing him again. And so significantly in this lifetime, it's about being patient in your separation, that union is imminent and that it is always guaranteed.
Why did Aaron die in that life? What was the purpose of him dying at such a young age?
He was not in very much soul awareness at that time, simply because of his age. So it was more in service to Lynnette's experience, to serve Lynnette's purpose in that lifetime. Strangely, he's advanced more, perhaps, even though that's not really the right words. He's an advanced soul energy and was serving her evolution at that time. So it wasn't so much about the experience he had, but the one that she had. She had to experience the loss of him, the loss of the connection. She had to feel the depth of it. And she needed to connect to her inner spirit and her sense of free will to live. That lifetime it took every shred of willpower that she had to stay on the planet.
Mm.
And so succumbing to the illness was in many ways a soul choice. It wasn't that she couldn't have survived it, but she was ready to move on. So that 15 years that she was on the earth was all that was really needed to, in a way, set in stone some of the other themes that she had to work out in other lifetimes. And Nathan was coming in as a teacher.
Is scarlet fever the condition she had in that lifetime?
Yeah, she had scarlet fever was definitely the virus, the bacteria that created and produced the fever and eventually the death. But it did affect her heart, which was a condition that has pervaded her experiences in other lifetimes and in this one through a genetic line. It's about healing the heart, essentially.
Is there anything else that needs to take place to fully heal that memory and that condition and that energetic issue with the heart.
Yeah, she needs to trust him. She needs to trust Nathan in this lifetime and trust this experience. It's a magical connection that was preordained and is a gift for both. But Lynnette needs to be humble with Nathan and patient and really understand his role in her life. She presents as a teacher in this lifetime, and she is in a way, but Nathan has much to teach her, and she needs to open her heart to him more and trust. But that's across the board. That's not just with him. He represents what she's doing with everyone. Trusting, healing self-doubt, and healing her heart to give it away more to people. Mm-hmm. She's kept her heart really closed off. And she runs away when her heart is tempted to open.
Would you say that perhaps her boundaries are a bit too high?
Yes. Guarded. She's trying to micromanage the experience because she doesn't want to experience pain and loss again, but it's part of the journey. This is a gift. This life for her is a gift. It's a gift of mastery. In many ways, it's a gift of completion. She's reaching a stage of completion in incarnation.
Is there anything specific she can do to relax the boundaries, balance out the boundaries?
She's doing really well with this. She keeps coming back. It's communication. She's learning to get out of her head and not to assume and not to jump ahead into conclusion. To trust the connection, to trust her connection to everything. To trust that she is the connection. Things are not beyond her scope of understanding. She understands things at a very deep level. Lynnette knows this. But this territory with Nathan has been a bigger challenge, a bigger endeavor. It's been more of a soul purpose to open up. It's not about romantic love. It's not about that. It's about trusting her own heart. So he's helping her to keep coming back to herself, and she knows this. They talk about this all the time. It always surprises her that he can bring her back to herself, and she doesn't know how he does it, but he continues to do it over and over.
Yeah. Before she had a release in her throat chakra, do you have any information about that?
Yes, she's taking actions on this now, and it's taken her a few years to get to this place, but she's very much connected to the Oracle of Truth. She clears her chakra, her throat chakra, when she talks truth to people, and there's a lot of fear here. So she is creating and has created a platform where she can be more open with what she shares. So that's already in progress.
Yeah.
That's just happened.
Okay.
So she's doing well.
That's good. So in regards to preparing for the coming days, what information do you have for her?
In many ways, she's doing it. She doesn't really need to be worried too much about hoarding or guns, the things that she feels preoccupied with. It's a spiritual preparation. She's very aware that she's prompted and guided to take actions, make moves, follow her instinct. She can take the actions of preparing food and water and things for her own basic human survival. She can and should follow through with that. But as far as the concern that she has about this, it's about really just tuning in, staying grounded where she's at and doing the work, going into the healing work more with others. And doing the preparation work is going to open up her energy centers to be more available to follow the guidance that I'm offering. So it's really just about trusting and doing the things that she knows she needs to do on the physical, but stepping more into her power, because there's more here for her. And it's creating a spiritual immunity the more that she elevates and advances and expands. So she doesn't need to worry about illness, but stepping into a role of guidance in a bigger way for others.
Is any of that preparation time sensitive? Should she be doing anything really soon?
Yes, she's food and 6 weeks storage, food and water for that amount of time. It will be necessary. There will be disruptions. There will be grids going offline. Her survival isn't in peril, but for comfort, for sharing with other people, food storage and water is essential. A gun is not needed, but she's concerned about that, but it's not necessary. So a time limit, yeah, it's imminent. She needs to do it. She's in a safe location. If the grids go down, she won't freeze. She wouldn't starve. So she's in the right place.
In terms of timing, is something going to happen within the next 3 months that may relate to needing those sort of resources?
Not needing the resources, but she should have them by then. It feels more in the future than 3 months. It's a shifting timeline. The thing that's really curious about these timelines is that they're really based at this point on the will of consciousness. So there isn't a fixed point that can be connected to. It's fluid at this point.
Is it 100% definite? So the timing is hard to pinpoint, but is something going to happen that would require her to, have the resources for those reasons?
Yes. Yes, she's known about this since birth. She was raised with these concepts, with these knowings. She's very aware of this aspect. It is a sense of, in a way, spiritual immaturity that she's not following through. on the promptings of her soul. So yes, she will need she will need these provisions, but they're not life-threatening. These things are not life-threatening to her. So it's really about, it feels like a bump. It's a bump, a blip in a transition.
And that transition, how long could you estimate the period of time that it will take for the transition to happen?
6 weeks. Within that period of time, it will feel like darkness. It will feel like not dark, heavy oppression darkness, but just not knowing, not having resources available. So it'll feel like going offline and being rebooted, but the period of time is about 6 weeks.
So after about 6 weeks or 2 months, things should get back to a new normal after that, once it happens?
No, it's different. It feels transitory. It feels transitional, like there's new energy opening up for everyone. And for those that are choosing that path. So it's a level of consciousness. The physical reality will shift perceptibly, but not in a huge way. It'll be felt by those that are energy sensitive. And the more that they live in the transition of this new dimensional frequency, the more they'll separate, the more that they'll understand they're living in a different frequency. So it doesn't feel, the new earth and what I'm describing isn't an energy of resurrection or an energy of like things feeling new, but a gradual transitory state that's chosen. So it's chosen minute by minute, day by day, month to month. It's a consciousness. It's a choice of where the focus is being put. Lynnette and everyone really that's in an awakening process at the moment is already feeling it. They're already in bifurcation. They're already in the separation of the layers of dimensions, the realities that are shifting. So what people feel is going to be a hard shift, it's not going to be that difficult for the people that are doing the work, like Lynnette.
With this shift and that 6-week period, are earth changes involved in any way?
Yes, we're experiencing them now. Much of it is created. There's a lot of grid overlayment. A lot of it is manipulated. So some of the earth changes that happen are created from the energetic shifts that cause pressure in the earth that will create earth shifting around earthquakes and things like that. But also there will be perceptible shifts and earth changes that are being manipulated. So both things will be happening.
And does that connect into the state of the global consciousness?
Yes.
So would you say that something is manipulated on purpose with people's beliefs or people's fear, and that can go towards an earthquake, for example?
Well, yes, it's very layered and it's very connected. There are factions that are manipulating grid energies, but these layers, these grid energies are dissolving. Those that are rising in frequencies are no longer going to be affected by those manipulative actions. So even though the elevated souls are aware of the shifts that are taking place, and even souls that are leaving in mass, throughout different parts of the globe. There's a sense of detachment from that, observing it, but detaching. And everything is connected to choice. So these separating energies and the weight and the violence of these earth changes will be dependent upon where a person's consciousness is. So some people will not understand it. They won't really understand that there's a connection to the choice and people's consciousness to what's physically happening, because people don't have the realization that those things are directly correlated and connected. So because of the power of the frequency of people's arising consciousness and the manipulation that people are escaping from, the earth will go through massive changes. But it's all just felt as energy. So those that do well are going to be those that recognize, well, they're doing the work already, but they're also in recognition that what is happening on the physical plane is the result of what's happening in the spirit world and in consciousness. It's all connected.
Are there any technologies being used to also manipulate in relation to the earth changes?
No, absolutely. And these things have been in place for aeons of time. These are things way beyond even, in many ways, human comprehension. However, it is resolving. We are moving out of the density of duality, and it is and was the fall into duality was the fall into duality was programmed. It was designed as a consciousness tool. So people will wake up and understand that the ones that have been manipulating through weather, through frequencies, through biologics, through DNA manipulation, that those entities are just an expression of consciousness, and we will resolve a state of separation.
So back to Nathan, can you give us some more information around the connection she has with him that she doesn't already know?
Well, in many ways, this is a blessing for her today, because she received earlier in the session deeper confirmation about their connection. She's a twin soul to him, even though it's not the terminology that I would use. It's a very limited construct of what's actually happening. So there is no separation. And of course, we're all moving into this awareness, this consciousness. Lynnette understands this on a deep soul level. She connects to this. But Nathan is her counterpart. And this lifetime is a blessing for Lynnette. This is a completion lifetime for her. So the twin and the soul, or what she perceives as that, she's coming into union with, because there's resolution here. So he's a blessing, and she knows this, and he knows this too. So there's deep recognition here with both of them. She's learning to trust more, and it's really about trusting herself and trusting her heart to him, which is really just about opening her own heart to herself.
Yeah. Lynnette wants to know if they will work together in the future.
Yes, absolutely. She knows this. He's her teacher. She doesn't and hasn't seen it in that way because so far she's perceived him awakening. But on the soul level, they're very, because they are the same soul, there is no like higher or lower. But he's definitely been, as her counterpart, a strong presence in her life through every incarnation. And she needs to defer to him more often, not from a sense of tug or push and pull, but from a sense of humility, being open and receptive to the things that he is and who he is and what he is and how he speaks and what he brings into her life. Gratitude. She can practice more gratitude.
What's an example of one of the things they may do together in the future for work?
Well, she taps into this. They'll counsel. They'll do a lot of polarity work with couples together. They're learning about this on the human plane at the moment from their human perspective, but they will teach these concepts to other people, and they will use tools of self-discovery. So they'll both work with other people privately, but they'll do work together. They'll do a lot of group work together, a lot of energy work, a lot of retreats, celebrations, union work and concepts, bringing people together.
Sounds
Healing.
good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. She knows this though. She feels it. She's very aware of the potential. She's afraid in many ways of it, of trusting it, of leaning into it more. She doesn't want to lose it. But she won't. That's just human stuff.
Is Oregon the right place for her at the moment?
Yes. 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 There's, she's in an experience right now. And I smile because Lynnette is so aware of me. There's union happening with us. She is merging with me, her consciousness more and more. So she speaks of this with her clients. She speaks of this with her tribe and her group. She'll teach these things. She'll describe these things. This is what her membership is about. And she's getting ready for a lot more, but she's very aware of, she's very perceptive. She perceives things very accurately, and she's coming into more consciousness about that. And so fasting for 30 days, both through cleansing and fasting for a period of 30 days, is going to really heighten and expand her intuitive knowing with me. There will be a deeper merging that will occur with both of us.
Should she move away from Oregon in the short-term future? How long should she stay?
She'll know when she needs to go. It's been arranged, and she understands. She's in a month lease. So she's very aware that she's come back into this area to do the work that she can do for as long as she can do it. So she'll know when it's time to go, and she'll be supported in it. There will be a time that she'll need to leave, mostly because of body autonomy. As things continue to degrade, but there will be union with Nathan at that time, so she's not going to be drifting as much. There will be more stability and security for her. more than she's had in the past.
She wants to know some more information about why she is here this time around.
This is completion energy for Lynnette. This is a completion lifetime for her. She's at a level of soul advancement where she's getting ready for soul guidance work on a more ethereal level. She'll be incarnating, but not so much from the plane of existence that she's in. So she calls one of her favorite things to mention, and she calls a lot of the work that she does intrepid soul work. And she is an intrepid soul. She's been on this planet working in a human experience for a very long time in preparation for this moment. She wanted and was committed to being here for this event, but there's much beyond this period of time for her. And for her counterpart as well, there's completion energy for both of them. So this is union in many ways for her and soul evolution. And it's part of a bigger construct that was connected to her last hypnosis around the concept of soul evolution and what that's about. So she can explore more of that with you, perhaps.
What's an example of what she will be doing after this life?
There will be less time spent in physical incarnation. This will be a period of growth for her, of soul expansion, in the sense of a trajectory of godhood, of moving into conscious expansion. It's the best way I can put it. There's teaching here. There's soul guidance here from an angelic perspective. So incarnation's only when there's fun to be had, frolicking and romping, and when there's a desire to be in a physical body for a period of time, but not so much from the human perspective. More from more definite choices around the kinds of experiences on a physical level she wants to have, not from learning lessons. The soul advancement is completing. There's resolution here. So there's another level of soul expansion and exploration for her, which looks like soul guidance. She's been practicing, but it will look different this time.
What's one of the examples of, another experience in a body that's not human?
Being a tree, being the sky, being nature, creating worlds, creating spheres of existence. Being, just existing without intention, to just be. To experience creation from a state of intention. To create experiences and to move into the experiences of those creations. So, for example, creating a tree in an environment where she then becomes the tree, lives as the leaves, the rain that waters the tree, becoming all that is in the experience of that.
Are some of those things, will they be what she might choose after this life?
Yes. Yes, this will be what was just described, will be a period of new exploration of her abilities of creation. The actual creation of physical reality is new for her. And the union of her and Nathan, and their union in this lifetime and beyond, their union and the creation of their androgynous spirit is what supports that. It's a soul evolution, so it's something they do together, but it's not together. It's their understanding of the separation of souls is ended. So there's a beautiful union of expansion that is created in the androgyny of the gendered halves coming together, consciousness and infinitum and creation. So there's a completion here of the experience of physical reality from the human plane, and a preparation for getting ready for more spiritual work. Spiritual from the space of guidance, becoming a soul guide, a spirit guide for others. That's the next step.
Has she had, or does she have, any starseed-based lives?
Yes, many.
You say she will be experiencing other existences. Would a starseed life be an option as well?
Absolutely. It's connected. Starseed energy is connected to this soul expansive energy. And many starseeds experience this consciousness on other realities as they are also incarnating in this lifetime. So there's many layers of consciousness that they're experiencing, because of course time isn't linear. It's all happening at once.
So for example, if she finishes up here and goes off, maybe wants to experience what it's like to be the sky or the atmosphere, at the same time, could she also be having a life as a starseed?
Yes, she does that now. That is happening now for many, many people on the planet. There is a level of consciousness with these souls that are in positions of healing, positions of communication, positions of teaching and spreading knowledge and wisdom. Many of the souls here present at this time are starseeds and are working in many capacities, but many of these souls are in these completion lifetimes. What these humans feel is the new earth is such a limited construct. It's so much bigger than that. And there's a little bit of a misnomer that it's like a resurrection and living or romping around in a different dimensional space like a new earth. It's a little bit not quite right exactly what it is. The new earth is a dimensional frequency. It isn't literally a bifurcation of worlds, but a dimensional shift in thought that is connected to choice. So these starseed individuals are all getting ready for different realities and moving. All of us have been here in these parallel lifetimes for aeons. So we're here incarnating for this moment and helping human souls to elevate into frequencies that they no longer need to incarnate into reincarnation. What we're really doing is escaping the reincarnation matrix, which is constructed. It's actually a trap.
So with the new earth, would you say, if we're living in the positive timeline, the new earth is really that timeline?
Yes.
And at the same time, the new earth is also where souls are going to, as in just different experiences afterwards, after this life.
Yes, yes. It is not linear. It's not one-dimensional or even three-dimensional. It's multidimensional on many different layers and levels of consciousness. So what humans in this frequency are going to understand is that they have the choice of instant manifestation. They can create with their mind instantly what many people have thought is heaven on earth, to create a feast in front of them, or dwellings or locations that will actually be possible. And that's the shift that's coming, because humans do it now, but because they live in a time frequency, it feels like there are things that happen in order to create that location or experience. And in the new expanding realities, there won't be the experience of time, which is primarily what we're moving out of, is the sense of time. So they will experience manifestations instantly, which is always how it's been, without the perception of time. So these starseed souls are remembering this and have been on a reconnaissance mission to recruit human souls out of the matrix to add to the hosts of heaven. And not everyone will be in that level of dimensional reality. It isn't anything to be sorrowful about or anything to grieve or mourn. It is simply the continuation of timelines on different frequencies.
So when you were speaking about the manifesting or wanting to have a certain space created, would that be possible in the future, in the positive timeline on Earth, for souls that are in a human body, and say 10 years time? Would it be possible here, or are you referring to their next experience after this life?
Well, everyone that is on this, in this experiment or in this experience as starseed souls, is getting ready to create their own worlds, and thus create their own human soul type prototypes. So there's authorship, there's stewardship of not only the responsibility and the awareness and the consciousness of creating conscious design and intelligent design, but also the beautiful experience of creating soul energy, which is much, much higher in frequency. This is on a human level or a human comprehension, is an eternity of expansion and learning and knowledge and being able to master to create human soul, but that is the potential. So we experience that as humans when we come together in sexual union and create a child and a vessel for human soul. In a way, we're practicing for the literal creation of soul energy, and it's very deep and profound, and it is beyond human comprehension where souls are going. But these starseed souls understand the God seed within them. And this has been a very long process of harvesting those souls that are ready. There isn't any lack of timing as far as any souls that are not ready to make the journey at this time. It's just an understanding of evolution. So every soul has its potential, but every soul isn't necessarily at a level of comprehension and ready for the soul human expansion that's available at this time. So starseed souls are souls that are evolving. Their souls are evolving. And as the human goes through the experience in this lifetime, the soul is also advancing. So human starseeds came in mass to go to the next level, which they haven't attained. So this lifetime specifically for many human starseeds is an advancement. It was a required class in order to reach the next level of their own expansion.
Before you said out of the matrix, and you mentioned the human trap. Can you speak more about that?
Yes, the entities that control and manipulate the earth plane have created a grid that captures soul into what we consider to be reincarnation. And in many ways, it's a prison. It is a gravity. It has the feeling of gravity that it traps these souls. Part of it is designed. The reincarnation cycle or the reincarnation trap or the entities or archons that have created this actually have been in spiritual service to the divine concept of duality, things that reality is needed for human and soul evolution. So the evolving souls are understanding that these entities or archons aren't evil, but are simply playing the role of duality. So the reincarnation net is still intact, and some souls will still be on the continuation of that soul entrapment until they have enough soul accretion to move out of it, which is what many of us are doing now. But those of us as star seeds haven't been able to exit the reincarnation cycle until now, and that's what we're doing.
So would you describe that as a negative thing, having that reincarnation cycle there?
It isn't. It's negative to the human mind, but not from the soul level that we're working with. We are understanding in our own expansion that what we've perceived as evil or manipulative or oppressive is simply an aspect of the duality that we've agreed to experience. So there is a blessing in all of it, and there's peace, there's deep peace that comes with this. It is no small feat to elevate and incarnate beyond the entrapment of the soul reincarnative net. It is a monumental task. It isn't negative at all, but it feels negative to the human souls that are in it. Even human souls, when they're reincarnating, feel tired and exhausted. There's an excitement and an anticipation of a new soul incarnation, but the soul itself does get tired of the incarnation process, and it's through the choice of not wanting to incarnate any longer that escaping the soul matrix happens. Everything is based on choice.
Is the entire reincarnation cycle controlled by the Archons, or is there something beyond that that's also a reincarnation cycle for Earth?
It's entirely created by Archon energy, but it isn't a negative. It's an aspect of evolution. So in many ways, if I could liken it or compare it to something, it's like when species on the planet they go extinct. They're not really extinct. The energy of those animal energies are not extinct. They've evolved off planet. So what we consider to be an extinction is really just an evolution of consciousness. And we see this in some of our matriarchal groups like orca whales and elephants and the record keepers of the planet. They choose to be here. And there is a reincarnation net, and many of the planets, or many of the animal frequencies and species stay in the reincarnation net, as in specifically whales and elephants, to hold a grid. So the reincarnation cycle and what we consider as the earth plane is a grid. There's a grid frequency of vibration that has to be maintained here. So what we consider to be, from our human thinking and from our human comprehension, it is a grid system. It is a matrix, but it is a divine system in the sense of the intelligence that created it. So there are other systems like it, but not as oppressive. The earth plane is the most dense reality that we can exist in.
Is the earth plane one of the better, or one of the most efficient ways for a soul to grow?
The only way for a soul to grow. The earth plane is the avenue.
Are the starseed experiences, the starseed planets and lives, the ETs out there, are they part of the same cycle? Reincarnation cycle?
Yeah, they're absolutely connected. There is, within the scope of reality of entity, there are entities and consciousness that takes on certain vibrational frequencies, which are identified as certain species of ET energies. And from our human perspective, we see things as black and white, as the polarity, the opposite, good or bad. And these energies and these entities don't operate from those kinds of frequencies. Everything serves a purpose. So what our conscious mind, what our human conscious mind considers to be aliens or those entities, we want to label them. But everything is one. So it's like when we move beyond and elevate beyond the human prison net, essentially, we move into much more expansive territory where there aren't distinctions about entity energies. We don't create distinctions in that way. We don't see differences. We have other things that we focus on, more on a frequency level, light, frequency, vibration. We don't worry about separation and label. Those things don't exist.
And does each individual soul choose to come into this cycle?
Yes. Yes, it's a human evolution, or the human soul consciousness, when it begins its journey, starts at a very basic level and incarnates through experiences. And the soul itself is very self-directed. It's not directed by consciousness, or it's directed by its own consciousness. What humans feel as God is really just their own power and frequency that they tap into. But because of how we exist on the planet Earth, everything feels as a separation. So we don't feel or understand the union and the level of consciousness that we're operating from. So the higher self, or what we perceive or what we call the higher self, is simply just a watered down version of the God frequency, which literally is the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's like one big beam of light from source that has different particles of light in it, which are all the galaxies, all the planets, all the consciousness that exists. So as much as you can separate light is the same idea. You can see it sometimes as particles that float around in the light, but the light is indistinct in a way. There's no separation. Does that make sense?
Yes. So when Lynnette is having another experience after this life, isn't that really you having another experience, higher self?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Lynnette is you, basically.
Yes. Yes.
Can you share more about yourself, information about how that works or what makes up you?
Yes. The stream of consciousness that exists is singular. It is the same power, the same frequency. And in order to experience all the fractals, which is really what it is a continuation of an ability to experience from all different levels of consciousness, all the ways that we can exist in reality. So everything belongs to everything, and everything that we can perceive in our consciousness is connected. There is, in many ways, the consciousness is connected to choice, or what we perceive as consciousness is rooted in the aspect of free will. And that is what creates the ability to manifest into physical reality, is from the choice and the consciousness and the desire to do so. So we only become human souls when we have the desire to become human souls. So until then, we exist separate from that. We exist in a state of oneness in the consciousness of what we would consider to be all that is, or God. So the decision, there's literally a choice and a decision to be a soul entity and to operate from that frequency. And within that experience, encoded within that experience, are, in a way, evolutionary keys or codes that allow for the advancement into godhood. So before we decide to become human souls, we are simply pure consciousness. The choice is what allows us to become like God, or God itself, to be in a state of creation. So we go from a state of being all that is into a state of creating all that is.
How many different experiences and lives are you having right now as a higher self simultaneously?
Infinite. It's uncountable.
And does every soul on earth have a different higher self, different to what you are?
Different from their perception, but not different from what is. The idea, what happens when we choose to take on the soul journey is when we choose to separate. So we choose the journey of separation. And it's through that choice that defines and distincts us. So there are different higher selves, like every human soul has a higher self that is separate from their perspective, but it's all connected to the consciousness of all that is. So it originates from the same place. So each human soul perceives their own human or higher self as separate, but that's connected to choice. And that higher self is connected and created when the decision and the choice is made to take on a human soul journey. So the higher self is the higher aspect of consciousness that accompanies the soul during every incarnation and remains a companion until union occurs, which happens at the end of the completion cycle, which many people are rapidly moving into that energy.
So, for example, you said you're having infinite experiences. So another soul may be speaking to their higher self, and their higher self could say the same thing. They're having infinite experiences. Are those infinite experiences separate to the infinite experiences you are having?
No, not necessarily. It's all combined and connected because we're all originating from one mind consciousness. Everything is connected. For example, when a human soul, for example, when Lynnette loves to go out into nature and she connects with nature, she's literally connected to her own consciousness through the avenues and through the vibrational frequencies of nature. She's getting ready and has, in incarnations between incarnations, actually practiced creating human matter, creating rocks, creating trees, creating simple things. We all do this when we are in rest periods between human conscious incarnations. But we're all interfacing because ultimately we're all of the same consciousness. And this is why we feel each other, why we experience empathy, why we can feel. It's like we have antennas that move beyond us because our consciousness isn't separate. And this is what we're understanding, especially in this lifetime, for many people that are advancing off planet or off this human experience from the soul level on earth as we know it. Many human souls are at that stage of completion and understanding that it is all connected and that it's all based on choice. So there will be a deep understanding in the days and years to come that our choice is connected to our godhood, that we can change anything in an instant through the choice that we make as a collective.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so you're separate. You're separated from Lynnette in a way, but you're connected, and you're gonna have a lot of experiences at the same time. Can you explain your connection back to the absolute or source, or what some people may even refer to as God? Are you also a bit separate from that, or are you the same thing?
I am the same thing. We are all the same thing. It is only in the experience of duality that we've chosen on this earth plane that we experience the separation, or what we consider to be the experience of separation. So what's really fascinating and really interesting, perhaps for you humans, is this realization or understanding that before we choose, that our human incarnations are a choice. It isn't something that's been bestowed upon us by God, because the God energy, or the consciousness of all that is connected to the universal and natural law of free will. And so choice is everything. Choice is how anything is created on this earth plane. So this is what we're understanding. We're understanding that our free will and our free choice doesn't exist until it becomes a concept within our mind. And it's the same energy that we might consider that God had when he created human souls is that his desire, or its desire, to experience itself in infinitum is what created the fractals of our human experience and what we experience as human life. So we are in the sea of oneness until the consciousness of that choice is made. And then we go into the choice of human incarnation until that choice is complete.
So Lynnette's going to have some other experiences after this life. At what stage will she graduate from all of that and perhaps return back to higher self and feel like she has accomplished everything that she set out to do? How does that work?
Well, from a state of our own comprehension on the human plane, it feels it's eternity. That answer is infinity, eternity. There isn't really completion energy as you can perceive it from the human perspective. It is continual growth and expansion, but from a level of consciousness that we can't comprehend with our human mind. There is a completion energy that Lynnette, as a soul energy or entity, will feel when her soul and her body is complete in this incarnation. A deep recognition of a completion, a celebration. And many people in star seeds are in that energy on a spiritual level now. And that energy is very much available to each star seed, but not many star seeds are choosing that. Many star seeds are caught up in the density of it, the slog, the difficulty, the challenge. They're caught up in the human drama of it all. And those that are really awake and rapidly ascending are really aware of the bifurcation or the separation that it's creating. But human starseeds could, including Lynnette, could do very well to focus more on the concept of choice and understanding and being in the now moment more and being more aware of the choice that's available to them in every moment. Because every human soul has the ability to change the reality of human souls in the twinkling of an eye. It's all a matter of evolution. We can either go through incarnations and sort of have the experience of doing it lifetime after lifetime in consecutive order, or we can have the consciousness that we can make a choice and we can come into unity and we can choose to love each other and to really feel into the energy of oneness and into the energy of solutions. But a lot of starseeds are really caught up in leaving the negative net. It's normal. It's what every human really goes through. But as a rule, right now, many starseeds would benefit greatly by understanding that they have way more power than they perceive. And they feel into it with their intuition. They tap into it when they can feel their purpose. They tap into this knowing when they tap into their intuition and their empathy with others. But they see this as a novelty. They see this almost as a card trick, as something that's interesting, a puzzle to figure out, rather than as a state of being.
After we have a life on Earth, and if we do go back to our higher self temporarily, most likely, how does that feel to connect with the higher self and join with it?
It's so it feels like bliss, like joy, like unity, like being fed, being satiated, like contentment. One of the things that a lot of starseeds don't practice enough of is contentment, being content. It's beautiful to watch humans in their struggle for evolution, because human souls are constantly striving, and they often forget to live in the moment and be in gratitude. So union energy with the higher self feels like gratitude.
And all those sensations and feelings, is that achievable while we're in a human body, such as through meditation or out of body experiences?
Yes. However, one of the things that needs to be exercised more is the concept of choice. Meditation is, of course, a wonderful way to connect to our soul energy and to really feel into that. But the idea is to bring the energy of meditation into the waking reality of life. Now, some people will call this mindfulness. And of course, we have many examples of gurus that have experienced levitation, have experienced a resurrection, perhaps because they've achieved that state of consciousness in their soul body, in their physical incarnation. Everyone has this ability in the human reality without going and being trapped in the matrix of reincarnation. We're approaching a time when it will feel like a resurrection. It will feel like moving into an ascension process of the new earth. It will be labeled as such because humans love separation techniques with language and things like that. But there will be a state of separation, in the sense of the Earth is going through a process that it hasn't gone through before. And so in that way, it's monumental. We are evolving and bifurcating and creating, in many ways, a union with the energies that were present before Earth became downgraded. And the Earth plane that was available to us before the wars and before the explosions and before planets exploded and created Earth. We are moving, as we evolve as starseed energies and we evolve into this higher consciousness, we will inhabit that frequency, and that's what they call New Earth. But that's just a dimensional space. Did I get off track? I don't know if I answered that question.
A little bit, but that was important information as well.
Okay.
But back to that line of thought, do we lose our individuality when we connect back with higher self?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What's beautiful about the higher self is because it's a titration of human experience, it has a personality. It has a frequency, an energetic frequency that we would consider as separate from others, like it would be our correct characteristics, our personality, our ego. That's how we see it in the human. But the higher self is more of an energy of self-expression. And that self-expression emanates from the choice of human incarnation. So the self-expression is literally created to the energy of God and that desire to experience. So higher self energy, yes, does take on a personality concept of the things that the human soul or the consciousness that created the choice wants to experience. So higher self energies will have and contain a frequency of joy, of adventure, of peace, of bliss, of family, of connection. Each higher self has, in many ways, many components that would be connected to a personality that are rays of frequencies that they want to experience on the human level. So higher self would have characteristics or aspects of its higher self personality, but that's really connected to choice about what the consciousness wants to actually experience. And so this higher self takes on and chooses the frequencies it wants to experience. So higher selves will have personalities of humor, of adventure, of joy, of happiness, of joking, of trickster, of even conflict, and things just however the human soul or whatever it is that the original consciousness that created the human soul wants to experience. So if that makes sense, the human soul absolutely does have characteristics that the human also takes on. But yes, because the higher self is actually an aspect of the human soul. The higher self is only intact because the decision to incarnate has been made, to incarnate as a soul presence. So the human soul, when that is created, the human or the higher self is created with that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the higher self serves the human soul.
So, for example, if there was no individual souls out and about exploring, higher self would not be needed.
That's correct.
People have some fear about losing their individuality when they return to higher self. What can you say about that?
Well, the aspect of individuality is, again, connected to the impetus of God. It's the God soulhood energy. It is identity is a concept of the human creation. So that isn't possible. So you lose an identity because the identity as a concept, as personalities or characteristics that would create an identity, are connected to the soul. But humans are fearful. So the way that they identify and the way they operate in the world is through identity. So actually, starseeds are learning a lot about this because starseeds at this time right now are starting to identify with their spiritual aspects more than the human condition. And starseeds would do very well to focus more on their spiritual identity than their human identity. And that's a shift for many people at this time, because their beliefs are in the way, their beliefs, their conditioning. But many souls are ready to advance out of this identity with the human, and that's connected to personality and ego and their shadow. Part of what is happening right now is that we're healing the shadow mind. We're unifying the mind so that we're not living in shadow realities. Many starseeds are experiencing this, which could also be perceived as completion of healing, feeling integrated. Those who are done with the duality experiment are experiencing that now. They've healed enough that they've collapsed those timelines that are connected to trauma. And so many, many starseeds are waking up to their spiritual identity, and they're going to be, in many ways, that could be perceived as integrating the higher self. Many people are speaking of it in those terms. So the loss of identity that people are fearful about is just the loss of their human identity. And if they focus more on their spiritual identity and the private world that they experience, they'll have more acceleration.
Okay. Before we finish up, is there any additional information that higher self might want to tell Lynnette or myself?
Just that I'm extremely grateful for this moment. It feels like it's been a long time in coming. And I feel very grateful to you and to Lynnette and to everyone in her experience, including all the people that are on this journey with her, because this was important information for her to hear and to understand. And it's part of what she's getting ready to do. So I appreciate you facilitating this moment for both of us.